What's up, everyone? We're back here with the boys. Just me and Will here. No Keenan this time. He's out there traveling, doing some business, working, calling races and whatnot. And it's just gonna be you and me, Will.
Yeah, we're allowed to go on for as long as we can. No one's going to give you the watermelon seed. So, should be a good one. It's actually been a while. I don't think I've done an episode with you. I can't even remember when the last one. If it was like an EOS or something. But yeah, it's been a while. Uh, I've kind of just about recovered from jet lag, so we have a lot to cover.
We indeed do. So no time to waste. Let's drop that intro.
Nitro is the glory, but each buggy pays the bills. Welcome to the No Name RC podcast. Get ready for some serious bench racing. But be warned, we speak our minds, express our thoughts, and sometimes things can get a little rowdy.
Hate, and he just was influenced by the hate coming from the left, the hate coming from the right. And let's get back to more club racing and less of this racing.
It's hard not to be arrogant when you're always right.
See what I mean? That's exactly why people call you arrogant, Max.
You may not agree with everything we say, but it's definitely worth a listen.
And our pick, can you stop whatever you're doing?
Join your host, Lefty the Great, with co-hosts and guests as they get together to chat RC.
Hey, after that race that I watched this morning, I have to talk about it.
Here we go. $100 right here, $100 throw. Oh no! I like this.
All right, everybody. It's me and Will again here. Thank you for tuning into the show. We're gonna have a good one, all about the 10 scale worlds. It just happened in Sydney. Will obviously attended. I wasn't as lucky to attend, but I followed the race and kept you guys updated over on Facebook. But before we get going on the show, as always, we gotta thank our sponsors. We're gonna start off with JConcepts. Um, Big thanks to JConcepts being the title sponsor this year. Thank you to our premium sponsors, Hitec RCD, Sidewinder Fuels, Latera Racing, Invisible Speed, ML Toys, Dollar Hobbies, Sidepiece Racing, as well as our other sponsors, Fly Sky, Get Shit Done Coffee, Elite RC Productions, RC Project, Mayako, Techno RC, Beach RC, Racecraft USA, and Clinic RC. And then we never can forget our drivers who fly our flag here at the racetracks. David Ronafog, Robert Batte, Alex Hackberg, Matty G, Becca Yona, and Mason Fuller. And if I don't remember wrong, Keenan said he would force someone to become our driver. Was it Kerop or Champlin, one or the other? Or it could have been Bata. I can't remember. And then without forgetting you guys who watch the show, support us on Patreon, or you guys are a YouTube member. You guys put up some super likes there, super chats, what you call it, during the live streams. Keenan and Pekko did great turnout, almost 200 viewers per show, live per show. So that's a pretty good number. So thank you for you guys, and especially thank you to you guys who are part of our Patreon or the YouTube members. All right. So Will, you've turned how many years? Because you put here that you have a birthday. It was a week ago now already. So happy birthday, happy very belated birthday, that is.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'm 28, so that's pretty scary. That means I'm 2 years closer to 30, which is pretty
Yeah.
pretty scary because I'm getting old. I'm already got grey hair growing, but it's really annoying for some reason. My Facebook changed its birthday, so it's randomly in March, and it thinks I'm 15.
I had the same thing.
I'm trying to get it changed, and I keep trying to go for support, and they won't change it. It's really annoying because this year I was like, why has no one wished me happy birthday. Either do people hate me now? But
Yeah,
no, it's just Facebook's changed it, and I think it's
I had
because
the
I
same
manage
thing.
a bunch of pages, manage a bunch of
I
Facebook pages and
yeah.
stuff. It's kind of filtered through. So wait, did you
Yeah,
fix it,
I
or
think
did
I
you
think
used
so
to?
too.
Okay, I need to
I
talk to you after
managed
on
to
how you
fix it
fixed it.
because yeah, I managed to fix it, but yeah, it was weird because people kept telling me happy birthday. I'm like, it's not, yeah, it's coming up, you know. So then I had to change it. But yeah, happy birthday, belated birthday to Will. And yeah, if you are a sponsor now and you wish to continue, um, we're very happy to keep on our sponsors. Or if you're not yet a sponsor, we are looking for new ones for 2026. So we're preparing all the documents, all of that stuff to go out to advertisers. So if you're interested, stay tuned because we'll be shooting a message to you guys. With all that out of the way, let's get on with the show. So Will, you're back from Australia. It's really happy to have you here. And Keenan is on the road, and that's why it's just you and me doing this. And I was just randomly scrolling through Facebook. Um, and I found a picture of Keenan um, driving. Let me just get it up. I'm For some reason my Facebook is acting up, but he was on the
Like he's
driver's stand.
driving a car, or he's driving an RC car?
He was driving an RC car. For some reason,
No
my
way.
Facebook does not allow me to sign in. So let me just double authenticate myself.
I didn't even
Yes, it
think
was
he was
me.
capable of driving an RC car anymore.
Yes, and he's just not doing it because he's um he's so busy with everything else. But oh my god, why do we have this double authentication thing? Let me get the picture up. He looks so happy. I have seen him this happy before, but like it's very rare to see him this happy. So let me get this up.
I bet he was racing a
And
short
the
course as well.
stage there. It was some type of a truck because this was taken at the truck nationals. I can't remember where they had this event, but it's event they had somewhere that Elite RC covered, and he was obviously there and got to race some. So you can see here proof the radio there, you know, resting it on there. I do think this is on his shirt because he has to hold his hand tight to his chest to keep the radio on. But look at him, so happy.
He's so
And
happy.
we'll allow Keenan to be happy um, racing and being on the road, and us two we can be the ones to do the talking on the podcast for now, until it gets back. So good luck to Keenan. I think he's attending INS this weekend, so calling that race for Elite RC. All right, so back to us. You're back from Australia. Tell us all about it. How was your trip? I think you guys stayed afterwards a bit to enjoy the wildlife, if that's correct.
Yeah, so I actually kind of had a bit of a interesting trip over there. So I was actually in Marbella in Spain on a bit of a lad's holiday before this journey. And so basically on the Friday, my airline told me that on the day of my layover, there was going to be this huge typhoon that was going to hit Hong Kong, which I think I was meant to fly in on a Wednesday or something to Hong Kong where my layover was. And they basically told me, you know, you got to change your flight. So I ended up having to change it to Sunday. I didn't fly back from holiday until Saturday. So I came back Saturday, literally had maybe 18 hours to pack, get everything ready. So I originally had 2 days. I scheduled the Monday and Tuesday to kind of relax and pack everything on my own accord, but now squeezing into 18 hours. I didn't prepare my cars until I actually got to Australia. So yeah, I had to, and I was actually on the same flight as the Halls. We were all traveling together, so we all had to kind of make everything work. So we actually flew out in the end 2 days earlier, missed the typhoon. It was actually a really good call because the typhoon actually shut down the airport for like 2 days. So we would have actually got there like I think a day before the race, maybe even a little bit later because of all the backlog. But yeah, we finally got there. It's such a long flight. I think by the time I measured, but when I did the time, it was 28 hours door to door. I mean, I consider myself pretty experienced traveler, but that was definitely the longest I've ever traveled, and that was a pretty rough travel day. But yeah, we got to Sydney that morning, and then we had a few days to kind of get used to the time zones and everything. Did all the tourist stuff, went to the opera house, went to the zoo, and saw some animals that can and probably could kill me, but they were obviously behind the fence and glass for probably a good reason. But like, I actually didn't see that many things that could kill me. I know it sounds really bad, but like when I was obviously in the zoo, I did. But I mean, like in and around the track, I was kind of like pretty sad. I didn't really see anything that could, cause any harm, or because everyone always says that Australia is a really dangerous place for the wildlife, and I'm sure it is, but I only didn't really see anything. There was talks though of a snake coming to the pits, and I think Lachlan Donnelly's dad, I think it started to slither on his leg or something, on his foot. That's what I heard, whether it's true or not. But then I saw a kangaroo cross the road. That was pretty cool. But other than that, no spiders, really. I did swim over a shark, actually. That's a lie. There was one day I did go snorkeling and I did swim over a shark. It was only like a meter long, so nothing too big. But yeah, it was cool. So it's a really cool place. I can see like why a lot of the European, just people in general, want to move out there. It's a pretty cool lifestyle out there.
Yeah, it's very different from us. I think especially like for you guys because the people are basically British. They were a long time ago, so it's basically the same people just in a different part of the world. That's why they all get sunburned. So um, it's a very interesting place. Never actually made it there myself. So still looking for a day to go. I'd much rather go to New Zealand though, because no deadly snakes there. None of that. I do like snakes, but I do not want to get poisoned by one. So yeah, that's my take. I heard Pekko talks up Australia all the time. He loved going over there. A lot of people seem to enjoy it. So, and it was nice to see. Pretty much everyone who went there went for a couple extra days to go see all the stuff. But yeah, the reason why we're talking about Australia, obviously, because of the IFMAR 10 scale off-road worlds. Um, 2 weeks ago already, when it ended, or well, 2.5 weeks, 1.5 weeks after the four-wheel drive section ended. Hills Off-Road RC Raceway in Sydney. We're going to cover all of that. We're going to start off from some news and then go into a full-scale race recap. And again, thank you for JConcepts for bringing us this podcast and being our title sponsor for this year. Yeah, let's move on to the news. And the news is brought to you by Hitec RC. Looking for top-tier performance and reliability in your RC setup, Hitec RCD has you covered with industry-leading chargers and servos for both surface and air applications. Whether you're bashing, racing, or taking to the skies, Hitec's advanced technology delivers precision, power, and durability when you need it most. From high-torque servers to smart, efficient charging solutions, trust Hitec to keep you in control. Hitec, powering passion, elevating performance. Visit hitecrcd.com today. Thank you for Hitec for bringing us the RC news section of the show. I've chosen pretty much all the news from the worlds because obviously we haven't had chance to cover all that. There are some news other than the worlds. Actually released a new touring car, some announcements here and there, but we're going to focus on the news here happened at the worlds, and we're going to start off by looking at this JConcepts two-wheel drive body show. So
The P2X, I
obviously
think
we
it's called
all
now.
okay. Yeah, I named it P2.1 because I was not sure what it was called initially. But basically we all know the old P2 style body show. So let me add that to the screen because I do want to put this up just so we can see the original one because the differences are really not that big between the two. So we have this original P2. Biggest thing about it is the fin, or not fin, what would you call this? The sort of rear spoiler, I guess, is very narrow. It's just a little bit outside the cab of the body shell. But this was the popular choice for outdoor 10 scale pretty much since its release. I think already probably closing into 10 years now. I think at least 5 years ago when they introduced 2017 Worlds, I'm pretty sure this was brought to. So 8 years then on the market. Um, so um, then they brought in a new one for these Worlds. I'll get it up for you guys. Here we can see it on Spencer Rivkin's car. Let me borrow screens then. Yeah, Spencer Rivkin's car, and it looks very similar. Like if we're honest, there isn't much of a difference between the two. Same body style, front end is I think identical. The biggest difference is that can I try to bring it up a little bit bigger? So we have that fin or the spoiler in the back. It comes all the way to the edge of the side pod. Very narrow or very small change for that matter, but I think a little bit more rear heavy on the aerodynamics of the body shell. And I think that's kind of it. Not much else that has changed.
Yeah,
with
it
this
is.
one.
It is really hard to see. There are, because I saw these in person, and Jason showed me a little bit about it and other guys. But it's really hard to see in the photos. But it is actually a fair bit different in the rear end. It's just a lot more aggressive, and I believe they made some changes a little bit to the fin and the front end of it. But obviously, the shocks and the tower you can see on Spencer's car getting away. But when you see it in real, I mean, it's just the next generation of the shell. But when you actually see this, I guess you say it, the scoop on the rear end in real life, it's a lot more aggressive. It basically goes from like the side pods all the way up, while the older one was kind of just like a little kind of scoop, which is kind of built in, but it feels a lot more natural on the rear end, and then obviously puts all the airway onto the wing. So because they also had I know originally it was the Bandit wing, but they call it, I believe, the Illusion 7-inch wing, which is what they have now, which I think is basically the same thing, but they just made a little bit more clearance for the rear tires. And Jason actually supplied me with some, so thanks. So shout out to JConcepts there as well for that help. But yeah, small, but it was a lot of the higher end JC drivers had it, the body shells and the wings. So I think for the track, it was obviously better than the old one. So it'll be interesting to see where we use it moving forwards.
Yeah, I think it's a good change considering that pretty much the only time when the P2 is used is when it's very windy or when it's outdoors, the track is big. Very rarely do I see anyone use it on high grip. It's mostly lower grip or more open tracks to calm the car down. With that sort of added downforce to the rear by the wider spoiler. I think it's just that sort of bringing the advantages of the body shell more out there and then sort of reducing, because you don't really have to worry about high grip with this body. People don't use it anyway. So might as well optimize it for low grip scenarios. I think that's a good move and minor change, but perhaps a needed one. Yeah, that's with the body shell. I think that was the big update from JConcepts for the Worlds. There was wings and all that, but I think the differences between those are even more small, and I think it's maybe not worth our time right now. There wasn't big innovation in that area, but wings are wings. It's been 10 scale wings have looked the same for how long they've been alive. So um we'll move into the Mugen 4-wheel drive. Actually, scratch that. We'll move into the 2-wheel drive of Schumacher because of the fact that we talk about two-wheel drive now, and then we'll talk four-wheel drive later. So let me bring that up for you guys. We have I made a post about this earlier on, explaining sort of the theory behind all of that. So let me add it to the screen for you guys. So obviously it looks like a very standard Schumacher two-wheel drive, but already from the sort of initial view of the car, we can see front shocks behind the tower, some metal colored pieces here instead of the plastic front end. Rear end does look similar. There's not much in the rear end to say. This is obviously the winning car from Brock Champlin. And here you can see they used the I guess you call it Laydown instead of the Layback one. And I think same story for Associated, but they did use the B6. They did not use the B7 one, which is further forwards even then. But the reason why I brought this up was the front end. So as you can see here, a lot of changes happening here. I'm not sure how they've made this. I don't know if you know, Will, but I might say it's either 3D printed or then it's whatchamacallit.
I think it's like a cast mold from what
Yeah.
I've seen, but basically, it's you can probably tell here anyway. All it's doing is just putting the servo flat to the chassis because normally the Schumacher guys have it angled. So
Yeah.
I know there's something they've been doing for a little while, but I'm assuming if these are public, we can obviously talk about it. So I think it just gives a more linear feel, from what I understand, which is why they're running running it flat on the chassis. But yeah, I think that was one of the things they ran on a car. And I think the only other thing that I kind of really noticed was just that C and D block. From what I understand, they only ran it it's because of their new Cat BB platform. They're running like the pills like all the other cars do now. Because before they had kind of weird pill setups, they were kind of like their own. If you wanted to change toe and anti-squat, you needed one certain pill, but now you can also just use one pill and just rotate it. So I think that's the only things I really kind of saw they were running. But I didn't pay too much attention to it, to be fair. But it looked like their car was fairly standard for what it is.
Yeah. The big change is obviously I think the rear sort of arm holders. The main difference is those you can adjust it more instead of the old version. I think geometrically it was, at least looked to my eye, very similar. So didn't see much difference there. I think this is sort of the more interesting part. So all the other cars have had the servo basically here where Schumacher has it now. But now obviously Schumacher changed that. The angled servo, I don't know. I think the benefit of that is you can put the servo much more forwards than this one. So this one obviously brings the servo backwards quite a bit. Don't really know if there's that big of a difference to this. There is a slight difference in the steering linearity. So if I don't remember wrong, this is a bit more brings out a bit more expo. But it also fixes the side-to-side issue, because when you have the steering servo angled like that, they had to use the servo arm that they could have placed it in the optimal spot, so the steering was actually not symmetrical left to right. But here it should be. By looking at it, it looks like it's going to be symmetrical left to right. Other change, well, yeah, here we can see also the attachment style. They also use only one screw on the plastic one. I can't tell if there's much of a difference flex-wise with the plastic versus metal. I doubt that there is that big of a difference. But yeah, the last thing I was sort of interested about was the shock tower. So the front shocks, basically Associated has always been the only car with the shocks behind the front tower, and now every car has went to this style. So X-Ray changed to their newest edition car. Schumacher now, even Kyosho switched that. Yokomo, I think, is the only one who has the shocks in front of the tower right now, which is quite wild considering that was the more popular style. S-Works actually also changed it behind the tower. If you think about it, there should not be any difference, but I do think there is. But it's kind of I'm not sure how big of a that difference should be because there is a slight amount of torque at the shock attachment point at the top, but it should be like very small amount, almost insignificant amount. So, but it seems like people are doing this, and I don't really know. Do you know why they did this for Schumacher? Did they give an explanation on like, hey, we do this so we can get the front wing more forward? So, or is there like any? It's just like others are doing it, so we do it too.
From what I remember, this was something Lee developed when he was with Schumacher, and I think that he was also, I mean, I hope they don't mind me saying this, but I think he was part of the. I think he had the idea maybe to run the servo flat, or maybe I'm wrong with that. But I think he was doing all this at a time to try and make the car a little bit easier to drive, from what I remember. But I mean, I'm sure the Schumacher drivers will probably be able to tell me I'm wrong, and there's probably another reason for it. But that's what I understood. But I think also as well, it's better. I think it's just a bit more. I think it's also maybe a durability thing as well. Because I was just thinking, as obviously, just thinking, talking to you about it, especially on carpet where every track basically wants you to run a shock tower protector. Like, I mean, you'll know if you like lawn dart into a carpet when the shocks were the other way around the tower, that's what actually pierces the carpet. I don't think the actual carbon itself really, it will still dig in and could cause damage. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I also think this way around, you don't have any nuts or screws that's digging into the carpet if you were to crash or whatever.
Yeah, I do agree that I think that's the biggest benefit of running it like that. But at this event, if there was no other benefit, I would feel weird because obviously that's not an issue on dirt, unless they were breaking shock towers, which then would be a different story. Um, so I do think there must be some kind of handling advantage. If if there is any handling advantage, this allows the front end to sort of pitch more than if the shocks were in front. But we're talking very minimal here, like, and I haven't done the calculations of how much torque it would change because obviously you have the torque from the center of the mass of the car, and then you have that small amount of torque from the pivot point of the shock tower. Um, how significant that is, I do not know, but I can't believe that it would be that significant. But it obviously some small things can affect our cars, and as you can see here, it's not like they develop a new front end piece; they've just shimmed it forwards. Here you can see I think there's 3 millimeter shims or something like that. A lot of shimming, so it's
I think you can't
it's a
see in the photo,
very
but the kit comes with there's I think it's not, I think it's 3 actual 2 mil bits of carbon or maybe thicker. It's it makes it stick out quite a lot to make it work, and it kind of looks a
yeah.
bit, don't want to say silly, but it kind of does. But I guess if it's working on track, which it obviously did because it's a winning car, who am I to judge?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's kind of because the reason why I think it's deliberate that they feel like there's some advantage on the track, like for competition. That I think that's the only explanation, considering how silly it looks with the shims. Like if it was just to protect the carpet, why would you do it for the worlds where there is no carpet? That's kind of my thinking. Um, with the shocks because mass doesn't move anywhere. So the only difference between this and the other setup would be the torque from the shock end. But we'll leave that out. I might do a post about that if I get interested about it. And I don't think we have anything else from the Schumacher. Do you want to touch a little bit on the sort of lay down versus layback debate? Was there any debate? Were there people trying different stuff? I do I do remember hearing that Schumacher was running a machined gearbox at the Euros for the two-wheel drive from aluminium. I don't know if that's how true that is, but that's what I heard. They also have a molded layback, but they chose to run the laydown, which is more forwards for the motor. And if you can see from here, the battery is also very far forward. So, um, was there a debate at the track? Were people testing stuff, or was it kind of like we go into the event with the laydown, a 3-gear laydown, and that was it?
Yeah, I think to be honest, everyone, at least for sure on the higher end, were pretty certain on like the forwards lay down as kind of far forward as they can. Guess like not 5-gear. Like I don't think Schumacher has a 5-gear, but whatever most of these manufacturers have. I know. I guess X-Ray ran just their standard 3-gear lay down. I think everyone's kind of going back to the 3-gear kind of thing. But I think I mean we'll kind of touch onto this as well. But the track ended up being a lot higher grip than anyone actually really anticipated. So a lot of people were now actually trying to gain steering because a lot of people were actually understeering quite a lot. That was kind of like a common issue I see. And then like that's when a lot of guys now they were going to different front tires, moving the battery forwards, trying to do quite a lot more to get some steering. So it was quite weird because everyone prepared for the track to be super low grip, but it actually didn't actually end up being that way. But I think whatever everyone really kind of used it to warm up, they basically ran here at the event. I know our guys, we have a new 3-gear gearbox now, which is available. So a lot of guys opted to use that as well. A lot of people are liking that. So like I think from gearbox wise, that's kind of all I really know, to be honest. But I think it seems like wherever we go, everyone always seems to run the lay down. I don't really see anyone using a lay back. I think that's just people just trying to get more corner speed and steering, even if it's like super low grip. It just seems to always be the lay down is just the better way to go, at least from a pure pace wise.
Yeah, I've never. There was a time in Finland where we still raced outdoor dirt, much more slippery than this one. Um, and even us, we we never the stand up was always worse. Layback layback was debatable, but like it was always that there was no reason to run a stand up gearbox. So lower center of gravity and even more centered in the car was always faster, even though it was a little bit difficult to drive at times. Um, so actually, just to um, check, did any of the A guys in the main run the B7 sort of truck gearbox with the 3-gear, or was all of those guys running the B6 version?
To be honest, I actually can't remember who was running what, but I think a lot of the guys that went to the warm up kind of stuck to what they already ran. But I definitely
Yeah.
know a few guys like in the B and C, like a lot of them went to the new 3-gear and they basically said it was very comparable to what they were running before. So I definitely think in the future for our guys, we're going to be running the 3-gear from now on. It seems like they've had a lot of positive feedback with that in all conditions. So I think that's going to be the way forwards for us at least.
Yeah, and even I think the new 3-gear, if you people who watch listen to the show have seen pictures of it, it's basically two. Well, all the idler gear is as the same size as the diff. It's huge on the new
It's actually,
A3 gear.
I think, slightly bigger. I actually put it side by side. It's actually
Yeah,
literally a little bit bigger.
yeah, but it's huge. And think how small the idler gears in the current laydowns are. Um, it moves the motor quite a bit more forward. So that's an interesting development. But to be honest, I'm not really that surprised about it. Um, yeah. Anything else about the Schumacher? I don't really think, and I'll state this that I don't think there was really that much special about the car in itself. It there's nothing sort of innovative, just slight adjustments to make it better for these guys. And obviously Brock did a great job with it to come out on top.
Yeah, it looked like just those kind of few bits we pointed out, to be honest. But I mean, all of those bits. I think other than that front laydown servo, I think is actually publicly available. You can get and the C and D blocks, but I think they're just more just so they can have more adjustability with the four drive pills. But other than that, yeah, kind of echoing your words. Obviously, the car did well, and Brock, did really well to win. He did mention he lost his bags got lost on the way. So I think for the first 2 days, he had to basically use other people's stuff. So I think whether that was kind of him just getting his bad luck early and then using all his good luck on finals day, maybe that's how it panned out. But obviously, all jokes aside, he did well to win. Yeah, so honestly, like huge props to him.
Yeah. All right. So moving on. Now to the Mugen full drive, I kind of teach you guys about. Obviously, Burak, their only real top contender. They did have some other driver who I think I don't know if he made to the B or the C main, but he was up there, but never really in fight for the A. But Burak only really their top challenger in the B for tool drive, but in full drive he really shone, and with the new Mugen prototype, um, just taking a quick glance over, looks very similar to other brands. Nothing really innovative in a sense that like changing the full drive market, just basically bringing the stuff they have on the tool drive, like the adjustable rear shock position, um, and all the steering geometry stuff they have similar style on the tool drive as well. Very Yokomo esque. Obviously designer is the same guy, Shinadachi. Main difference I'd say to the Yokomo is the gearboxes open upwards, even though I do think some of those editions also had the gearbox open upwards. So in a sense, he's always like that design. I don't really have much to say from the design of it itself. I think the biggest selling point for this car is that it's going to be Mugen quality. It shows that the performance is all right, and it's another four-wheel drive car. I really don't see much difference to the market. All the four-wheel drive cars are very similar looking right now. But was there something in the pits that people were sort of discussing about this car specifically? Something that sort of people were noticing at the event that it did better on track or whatnot?
I mean, at least on track, I didn't, other than Burak qualifying pretty high up with it, I didn't really notice much else about it. I mean, there was a lot of talk about this car at the Euros more than anything. I know Burak, I think he made the main there. Yeah, he did. So, and I managed to see the car then because I was helping Burak. He had some slipper and center diff issues. So I was helping him in between his runs. So I did actually get to see the car, but I obviously, out of respect, didn't want to say anything for obvious reasons. But I think it looks like a really good car. It kind of oddly reminds me of the Corrali four-wheel drive. I know not many people would have heard of that car, but a few guys ran it here. Kind of looks like that in the way like the side pods are designed and the way the body kind of looks. And it kind of looks like it has more of like a box-ish kind of look. It almost
Yeah.
to me, and I don't want to say because this is obviously just more an appearance, it kind of has a basic look to me. Well, like the other cars have a bit more flash and alloy, and I think it's more because they use gunmetal, while like, for example, I guess X-Ray use like a lot of black alloy, and Associated use the blue, and Schumacher do their own thing, and so on and so forth. So I think that's kind of my only thing with it. But then on track, it's obviously pure performance. Obviously in the hands of someone like Burak, who's, I guess you could say, is pretty in tune with 10th now, even though he is predominantly an 8-scale driver. He obviously drove that car pretty well here at the Worlds. I honestly can't remember the result, but I know he did do quite well. Maybe he finished 4th, or maybe it was slightly less than that,
Yeah,
but we'll
4th,
obviously dig into
yeah.
that. Okay, gotcha. But I know he was pretty gutted. I think I overheard he had a few tears because he really thought he was going to essentially win. So, which I guess in a way I understand. I guess some of these guys, there's only so many opportunities you get in your career, I guess, where you get a prototype. at Worlds, and you could potentially win. Personally, as much as he's a really good friend of mine, I don't know if he had the pure pace to win, just because looks like Ongara and Marcus were absolutely on it. Even Fend, I don't even know if he was second, I think, or no, third, I think. But I mean, maybe we'll get into this space. I think I'll save this and we'll get into it later. But I think overall, Mugen car looks really good. I think it's going to wait and kind of see what it looks like on carpet, because that's always kind of the cars are really good on low grip and then stuff on high grip, or vice versa. But I think Shin knows how to design a car, so I don't doubt it'll be a good contender on carpet too.
Yeah. I really kind of agree with all you said there about it being like a basic car. And I think that's the thing with the tool drive as well. It was, you took the best tool drive at the moment, at least what people thought to be the best tool drive, which was the Losi. And then you made it into a Mugen. That's basically what happened with the tool drive. And then with the four-wheel drive now, it kind of reminds a lot the X-Ray. Like I can't really say that it's not like an X-Ray. And to be honest, with the TLR being like the X-Ray, it kind of same deal with the Mugen. So first X-Ray made the X-Ray, then TLR made the X-Ray, and I think now the Mugen made the TLR. So that's kind of my vibes of the Mugen. They basically, what TLR did with the tool drive and four-wheel drive platforms for 2019 onwards, I think that's Mugen kind of just picked up where they left off. That's my feeling of it. I was hoping for more innovation, because when Ashina was at Yokomo, the YC4, and then the YC4F, I think it was called YC4S, with the shaft driven
SF,
car. Yeah, SF. Both of those were innovative. The belt driven car, of course, was innovative because it was a belt driven car, not a Schumacher. So that was in a sense very innovative. And then the shaft driven car, that was the first car to come out with bulkheads and all of that sort of modern four drive design. And it's funny because after they came out with that car, Mayfield won the Worlds, then it was basically that associated with that direction, and X-Ray to some extent also had to, go into that direction a little bit with the adjustable gear, diff height and so on. So I was expecting a bit more, knowing Shin was part of the project, but then again, on track, it looks good. Burak is definitely not a tool driver, and he still puts out good results. He had a shot at the top 10 for tool drive, but never really was close enough. And full drive, where he should be, where he's at, he was right there at top 5 at the world. So, performance wise, good, but I gotta say, expecting a bit more, but we'll leave it at that now for the news. Was there anything else new in the pits we should talk about? Because obviously I wasn't there to get all those sneak peeks and pictures of all the new stuff.
No, not really, to be honest. I think so many of the manufacturers this year, like Associated had a prototype four at that race, at the warm up, sorry. Then Schumacher had one. And I think X-Ray kinda, I mean, their updates are never at least year to year, generally like night and day. I know they did release their new two wheel, but I think it's not significant, for example, compared to, let's say, the four wheel from Associated kind of thing. I think everything was kind of pretty similar, because I was kind of thinking going into this race, are these guys even going to release the car to the public? Like both Schumacher, Associated, and I guess here Mugen. I guess you could here coming back to the Mugen, I guess is the only car I guess is still in a prototype phase, you can say. While the others are all production ready, you can buy it off the shelf now. So, and then I think even with the two-wheel drive, it seems like from what I saw, all the cars are fairly kind of standard. There wasn't anything crazy new. We already went over AE and went over Schumacher, X-Ray. I guess I heard they were experimenting with a minus 12mm chassis, but we'll obviously go about two-wheel later on and how that kind of went down with them. But I think other than that, I don't know, there was Keenan's favorite, Hunter King, running the TLR cars. So
He did
but
well,
I think
but
he did do well, to be fair. He really did. And I think he was kind of the lone guy running that two-wheel and four-wheel drive platforms. I think actually that's a lie. There were two other Australians, and I forgot their names. I'm really sorry because I had a beer with them one night. No, I got him. Yeah, I think I had a beer with them. I can't remember one of them. So yeah, it's kind of really what I saw. And then there actually was a few Yokomos, but I think Yokomo, they're kind of a bit stagnant. I think there was one guy speaking to, and they said the only thing they changed was a couple shock towers and here and there. So yeah, it kind of seemed it was just like those top three brands really, X-Ray, Schumacher, and Associated, kind of, I guess you could say, with newish stuff, I guess.
yeah. One brand I didn't mention was Kyosho. Actually, they did have two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive. I think Fuma Saito is his name, who is sort of the number one guy. I don't know if he's the designer as well, or if they have a designer and he's just a driver. But basically, they released the two-wheel drive already earlier on this year. At least CAD pictures of it. The four-wheel drive, I've heard it has some new stuff, but both of the cars, it's basically most of the plastics from the time when Kyosho said we're gonna end 10 scale, and then they've slowly come back after that, and they've updated sort of aluminum parts and stuff like that, but the general design of the car hasn't changed because they haven't done much of the new plastics. There was the chassis focus of that one, but I didn't feel like it had that much new in it, and I think Fuma Saito put himself in the B main in both classes, so I guess he did all right, but nothing sort of similar to the Mugen sort of coming onto the top seed. Um, do you have anything on the Kyosho, or should we move on to race recap?
Yeah, I mean, like their two-wheel is kind of basically there. We have a local guy here who races them quite well. He's called Ollie Natris, but good driver. He's good, by the way. Just a shout out for him because he's a good friend. But it seems like the two wheel was kind of when they released the RB7 was kind of just more of an update. Kind of, I know a lot of Kyosho guys who are still loyal to the brand and still running the car. They were kind of doing, I guess you could say, a lot to make the car work in this modern times. So I kind of feel like they just did what the drivers were doing, just putting it into something a little bit newer. Personally, I don't think it's. I mean, of course, in the right hands, like you can get amazing results with that car for sure, like with any other car. But I think like I feel like just in Kyosho in general, it'd be really good to have them back. And it seems like they're kind of making small strides to get there. So the RB7 is a little bit of an update, and it's okay. I don't even know if it has the quick access gearbox, as
It
far as I'm
doesn't.
aware.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It doesn't. It's kind of what I mean. There's still a lot of features that it could do, but and then also with the four-wheel drive, that four-wheel is ancient. I think the last time that car was really updated was basically the 2013 Worlds, or like 2015 maybe for sure. Which is
15,
almost
yeah.
it's 10 years ago now, and maybe these guys are doing these races to kind of get some data and try and figure out maybe what they want to build for a new car. I kind of feel like I overheard they are going to make a new four-wheel, but I don't know. But I know Kyosho, like Temscale, I guess is a whole debate in itself. Like some places it's quite popular, some places kind of decreasing, I think, in popularity. So Kyosho is like the temp stuff is such a small part of their market. So I guess for a company like them where they do die cast and everything as well, not even RC, see if it's even worth it. But it'll be nice to see if these guys came back, because I definitely think in this day and age, there is kind of less choice for brands. There are brands, and I'm not saying there's not, but like if you think about it now, just the three you really want to pick from is Associated, Schumacher, and X-Ray. I know I've got the Agama car. I know that's once that comes out, that's also potentially going to be a contender. And I just feel like Yokomo and the Japanese brands, like I guess Yokomo and Kyosho, it would be good to see them back, but I guess in this day and this market, it's just maybe they don't see it as worthwhile. But maybe, especially Kyosho, maybe there's a chance they'll come back. It'd be nice to see them.
Yeah. Yeah, I do hope Kyosho comes back, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see how their project. They are trying in Japan at least, so they're doing something. All right, let's move into the race recap. We have this segment is brought to you by Sidebeat Racing and Latera Racing. So thank you to those guys. And first, we'll start off with Sidepiece Racing. Elevate your RC experience. North America's exclusive distributor for top tier brands like Automatic, Roche, Wild Turbofan, Montec Racing, Corsetec, Phoenix Racing, and Willspeed. Whether you're seeking precision engineered car kits, high performance batteries, or aerodynamic bodies, we've got you covered. Enjoy fast shipping and exceptional customer service, ensuring you get the best gear when you need it. Visit sidepiece.racing.com today and race ahead of the competition. Thank you for Sidepiece Racing. Anything you need, especially on road, you're living across the pond, go to Sidepiece Racing. These guys will get you covered. And then on this side of the pond, from Sweden, Latera Racing. Step up your RC racing with Latera, one of Sweden's premier hobby shops and track dedicated to races. Featuring top brands like X-Ray, Hobbywing, Zoo Racing, and Team Coyote, we provide everything you need from precision chassis to higher performance electronics. Whether you're at the track or upgrading your setup, Latera Racing caters to the racers who demand the best. Visit latera.se or stop by our shop and track for the ultimate RC experience. Latera Racing, built for winners. Latera Racing, working out of Sweden. I do believe shipping across all of Europe these days. So whether you live in the Europe or in America, we've got you guys covered. Um, and so recap of this week. Obviously, the Worlds from 29th September to 9th October. Hills Off-Road RC in Sydney, Australia. We'll talk about sort of coming into this event. Pretty much the only talking point was finally some real off-road. All these new young kids, they will suffer, and Ryan Mayfield, Jared Tebow, and Ryan Cavalieri will come out and dominate with their associated B-Force. Everything's going to change back into the good old days. And obviously none of that happened, but that was sort of the vibe going into the event. I think everyone who actually still races at a high level, or the manufacturers, all those guys knew that we're not there anymore. Like, things have come forwards. Fast stuff today is fast on all the surfaces, and we kind of went over this with the tool drive, but yeah, it was pretty clear that all of the hype didn't really materialize in a sense. There was people who was really happy to race on dirt. That was not like traction roll level, but it was like under the sun, under the skies, and sort of natural. You get a little bit of roughness, you get a little bit of that edginess from the dirt. It's not perfectly smooth. And for us Europeans, it's not carpet; it's actually dirt. So I think in that sense, I think people were happy, but sort of the hype, I don't know if it was fully fulfilled. Um, but I don't know. I've seen a lot of mixed sort of reviews of this. A lot of the American crowd is like, there was no roost, so that's not off road. And a lot of the Europeans were like, I really like this because this is how I remember 10 scale. And then there was maybe I'm of the crowd that I'm like, okay, it was fun, but I don't think this is the future of the sport. So what's your take? Because you was actually there, you actually got the drive on it. Was it fun? Was it something you'd like to have all the time around, or is it just sort of one type of racing?
I definitely think the vibe and what was the word you were saying? I think it kind of lived up to the expectations that people were put in before the event. Like, just everyone there seemed really happy with it. The track was really good. I think the grip level itself was, because it was higher than we thought, it was actually quite manageable, and it was really fun. Like, we weren't really, it wasn't as low grip as everyone was expecting, because everyone we spoke to who's a local said that we don't know, we never have to grip like this. It's way, way low. And I think the locals were kind of hoping for that lower grip as well because they did so much preparation for it. But I think like in terms of the future, I'd love to say yes, but I think just because with our climate and how everything is now, I think to maintain a dirt track is too difficult, at least outdoors like this. And I don't think, as much as I hate to say it, I don't think I could see this moving forward in the future unless there are tracks which kind of like Hoodie Arena where they have their own space, or is it or just an indoor track? But I kind of think the Hoodie Arena is kind of the best of both worlds because even though it's indoors, it's very well ventilated, so it kind of feels like outdoors just indoors a bit more. But I'll say like in terms of the track and the event, I think it lived up to the hype. I really think it did. Like no one really complained about the track. The surface was good. It wasn't killing tires as bad as we thought. It was still about 2 to 3 runs on a set, but like it was good. To be honest with you, it was a really fun Worlds, and I think the weather was on our side as well. And I think because it was in Australia, I actually didn't realize that our city scene was that big, but it actually is. So they had a fantastic vibe to it as well. So kind of just touching on everything, I thought it was a really good event. Definitely, probably my favorite Worlds that I've been to. But maybe from the internet side, maybe everyone else kind of saw another side.
Yeah, that's kind of what I heard, that people who went actually liked it, and then people online said it was not off-road enough or whatnot, but the hype was
No,
big going in.
it was off. It was definitely off road enough, and anyone that didn't, anyone
Yeah.
that thinks that I don't think they went. So, because it was like the track really grooved up, there was dust. They were only watering the track. They were watering the track in the evening just to kind of keep the track together. There was no sourcing. Obviously, there was no sugar on the track. So it was just pure dirt racing. And I can kind of see now why everyone raves about it, to be fair. So I'm kind of, for everyone that kind of says the racing, old school how it was, I get it now. Really get it. And it was actually really fun. And I hope
Yeah.
in the future we'll have more races like this, but I just don't know with how the world is if that will happen.
Yeah. Then about sort of the drivers, at least on this podcast, one was me and Keen, and he was kind of building this image that it's going to be Rivkin versus Fend. And then kind of everyone else is a bit out of the picture. Champlin, he's a carpet guy. The Europeans, they are much worse in 10 scale. Carab could do something, but I still think Rivkin and Fend are going in. At least that was the vibe I had going into the event, that he was going to be Rivkin or Fend who's going to win. Um, Obviously didn't happen, but this was these two were the big favorites, and I think that was sort of interesting going in. Another thing, a lot of testing. Rivkin and Fend both were those who went for testing. Lemieux obviously probably went for testing. I think he went to the warm up and one time before. X-ray team spent the whole week there. So I think I even wrote down here in the note that I think for this world, teams should be prepared more than they have for any of the last few previous worlds. I'd say go to as far because Rivkin traveled 3 times or 2 times here. Same with all of these sort of big brands. They went Schumacher, who went twice at least there to test. So I do think these were sort of the best prepared worlds for a lot of these brands. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'd actually agree because I was thinking in my head when I was at Arizona. I mean, of course, a lot of the US teams would have prepared because they go to that track quite a lot. But even like Slovakia, I don't remember many. Like a few guys obviously went. I know associated. I think the only guys they sent was like Yuna, Dustin Evans, and Spencer back then, and then a few other guys. But definitely felt like this one. But I don't know if this one was more important because a few guys obviously had new platforms. So I think because while they're still trying to learn that car, probably develop it a little bit for the lower grip conditions. Maybe that was a reason why they traveled more as well. But I definitely think that everyone prepared a lot more than usual. And I think a big part of it as well is because everyone was kind of worried about the the local advantage, which I actually don't think was as big as everyone was kind of going to expect, just because the track layout was different. And I think that's another thing we'll touch on is the locals. So it kind of ended up being a more neutral world, I think, in a way, especially now that there was a new track and fresh and everything for this event.
Yeah, I think the local was one point I also wanted to touch, because we, even on the podcast, we said that maybe Donnelly would end up winning this, um and I think that was, looking at it now, um I guess those expectations were too high, or it could be just be that, as you said, the track was very different than it was before, which really usually hurts the locals more than helps them. um it's interesting, but there was these ideas that there would be like 3 Aussies in the main and stuff like that, which obviously none of it happened. But um, I don't know. I can't really remember a similar sort of time where people thought that this would be going to be a really biased one or really favoring the locals. And I don't know. I do think every single time there's the worlds, there might be one or two guys who can actually benefit from being a local, and then and then like lower level guys, of course. But sort of going as far as someone winning the worlds who is not actually, talented enough to do it, I think that's always a stretch. Even this time it kind of proved to be that way. But there was a lot of like a lot of people thought that the locals would dominate, especially I think Aussies were quite, confident, especially after the warm up, because he beat Lashland beat Rivkin after the warm up.
Yeah, like I was actually speaking, there was a night I kind of ended up going out with a lot of the Australians, which was kind of nice to kind of meet them. And obviously a huge shout out to those guys as well for the invite. But I think the main thing was I think you can understand this fully from Lachlan's side. He did really good at the warm up, and then obviously everyone is talking about him. So you can imagine from his side, there's so much pressure and don't say false expectation, because I don't think that was right. But really think he did have at least what it takes to make the final. And you can imagine, like, if this wasn't his local track, maybe he'd be like, oh, if I'm lucky, I'm at the A final. But like, your expectations obviously naturally would be lower. So I don't know if it's just that how everything lined up from the nationals that he did well, I think a year ago, and then there was the warm up, obviously, which he won in both classes. That I think he really thought that he was going to have a good chance, and I really think he did, and I think he did everything right as a driver. But I just think ultimately on the day, because I think in practice he was in the top heat for practice, so it looked like even on the new track he was looking good, looking solid. His car looked good, his package was great, but I think just in qualifying, it just didn't work out, and I think unfortunately that was just how it was, and I think that's where, like, annoyingly, these top guys are top guys for a reason, and I think just simply they have just more experience on the world stage, and just you can see that with everyone that made the A final.
Yeah. Yeah. I think pressure is really what got to him in the end, which is understandable. And then the track being different. I think those two things were probably the biggest factor. Um. All right. Let's move into sort of more in depth look at the track. I'll bring up some photos for us to look at. Courtesy of JConcepts and Circus RC. Thanks for those guys. I think uh, they've been doing a really good job even at the H-Scale Worlds. So sort of a side shout out to Circus and JConcepts. Here we have it. So let me bring this up. The track. You were the one of us who got to drive on it. So I think you should do the honors of sort of giving us the idea of how it was. Let's go to tool drive route. So enter the straightaway. Obviously, this sort of two-parter 90 degree to a 180. And then there's sort of an off-camber, long left-hander, again a two-parter which you connect into one, double into the back, a little bit of an uphill, dip down. I guess you'd call this a chicane or a switchback. And then we move into the sort of, again, uphill, dip down to a 90, dip down to a 180, then again uphill, step down. We have this corner tabletop, which I do believe most people jumped even in Sura, which I was a bit surprised about because it looked quite difficult. And then this three-parter. So we have the tabletop, a double, and then onto the front straight away. Obviously, for the four-wheel drive, it's the opposite way around. So enter straight away, you come into the double and jump to the tabletop, corner tabletop the other way around. Instead of step down, you have a step up, and yeah, basically everything moves the other way around. Is there some sections you'd specifically want to talk about, or would you like to rather just go through what you thought of this track?
No, I'm definitely. I think, to be honest, I'll go into it with the track because basically, kind of everything you said, they were definitely valid like points, but the track was so much different than the pictures and what kind of how can I say, like observed before even going onto there. So like, first thing to know is it's a, I know no pun intended here, but it's a really hilly track, and like the back end is a lot higher than where the bottom of the track is. So there's a lot of like, I can't think of the word, but don't say undulation because that's not the right word. But I guess you can. So I'm trying to say it's just
Elevation.
it is like a elevation. That's it. There's a way more elevation than it looks in the photos. Like that top section there, on a really important note, and you can kind of see it in this photo, is when like there's shadows on the track in the morning. That top section was really hard to judge because when obviously the track is clear, you can basically send it down that bottom chicane and up and around, and then for that whole section, you could send it a lot harder. But when the how can I say when the shadows on the track, it was really hard for two reasons. One, obviously, the shadows, but two, that was the last bit to dry during the day because it would get to the sunlight. So you always had to kind of be careful getting on throttle because a big part of this track was your electronics and really just eliminating all wheel spin. Because if you were wheel spinning, you weren't getting around. And yeah, that corner tabletop as well, people were just straight up jumping like any ordinary tabletop, and it actually worked quite well, to be honest with you. I don't think there was actually any dramas over there. I think they put a cone up eventually because people were people were cutting it quite far. And then this jump section was actually, I guess, if I was, wouldn't even say criticism because it obviously worked, but the kick was really high on that first bit. So you basically barely needed any power, and then you would send it through that first stubble. But it kind of felt like, and this is no disrespect to the track, it's just how I felt. It worked absolutely fine, but it felt like you did that little kick, did the double, waited for your car to land, and then you kind of turned and went almost kind of like rear motor style, like point and shoot. It kind of just felt like it didn't really flow kind of what I was expecting. Felt like you were just doing the double, then waiting, then doing the double again. It kind of felt like maybe it was just me. I felt like a beginner kind of jumping through that section because you had so much more time, I guess, to kind of straighten the car up. But honestly, for Wells, it was a really good track, especially in two wheel. So I don't want to take anything away from them. But the layout was really good. And actually, what I kind of wanted to come onto was that there wasn't actually many mistakes happening. Of course, obviously, people were crashing, but like there wasn't anything that caught you out. So it kind of felt like when you were going around, it wasn't a case of getting a clean run. It's a case of getting obviously a clean run, but fast. Because you could lose a lot of time just if you weren't pushing in the right places. But I think that's where if you were like good in the shadows, or in the lower grip, and in certain parts of the track, you could really like gain time and lose it very quickly. Was the main thing I noticed. But it definitely seemed like it wasn't a particularly difficult track, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think the big sort of positive about this track is all the corner sections flowed really well. They're not. I have to say this, but to me, it's kind of a very unnatural type of track for Americans, a more natural type of track for Europeans because of the sort of you have to carry that corner speed. Um, Obviously, you have to manage your wheel spin and stuff like that in a few of the sections, but most of the speed is generated by just going fast around, a lot of those corners, which really benefited, I think, Marcus in the qualifiers, because he really knows how to take advantage of that. Um, I'm gonna try to play some video as well from the track, just to get an idea. While we do that, um, what did you think of like racing on this track? Because being a viewer, it really seemed like there was not a lot of places to go when he was driving on it. So going side by side with someone, trying to force the driver in front to a mistake, it kind of seemed really difficult. It seemed like you kind of had to follow and wait for a mistake to happen, and even then, it was tough to like make a move.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely think that was definitely the case. It was definitely a one-line track, 100%. There wasn't really anywhere kind of really you could really make a move. I guess the only place you could kind of say you could is at the end of the straight, but that's obviously a bit like, hit, touch and go. That double before the 180 before this corner here, like that was actually quite hard to judge from a distance perspective. So if you went wide on there, you could kind of overtake there if you kind of did it well. Maybe the other place here is where we actually saw Champlin make his move was like this jump section here. You could send it, but and we'll get into A1 for sure, but that's where we saw that collision kind of happen. So that's kind of, I'll definitely say racing wise, it was just kind of you had to wait for a mistake to happen before you could kind of overtake, unless obviously the guy went wide and you can kind of catch through. So but it did make for some thrilling finals, though. I think, even though there wasn't a lot of passing opportunities, I think it was very, very hard to lead on this track. I think coming back to you had to push still, like you couldn't kind of just back off. It kind of felt like because there wasn't really many places you could crash. I know obviously you can crash, but I mean traditionally compared to other tracks, I feel like you had to really kind of push hard to get. You could actually push really hard to kind of get pace out of the car. So I think a lot of guys that was kind of the thing I noticed.
Yeah, I guess that's something different to when the tracks are carpet or high grip or that there isn't the narrow line. You kind of always going as fast as you can anyway. But here, I think this track was, if you wanted to make some time up, you could by taking small little risks, going on power a little bit earlier, risking to sort of make the rear end slip, jumping a little bit more aggressively, all of that stuff. Um, that you could do that you could normally wouldn't. So I think that's a good point that you could make up more time, but then I think the layout was sort of restricting overtaking a bit. A lot of off-cambers, as you can see, that long left-hander. This whole chicane switchback section is off-cambered. Sort of up and down sections as well. There was that nice move Brock made in A2 on that 180 into that 180 or 90 degree when Marcus made a mistake, but there wasn't really a section where you could push yourself in there. I think that's the only thing that I sort of found as a viewer to be a bit frustrating about the track. But other than that, it looked fantastic, especially in qualifying when these guys were pushing. I was expecting more mistakes, but as you said, it was very small amount of mistakes, and yeah, I think all in all, really nice track and nice layout. But you just kind of always want a little bit more chances to overtake, I think, and it's kind of a balance between the two. If you want a flowing good track or a track with a lot of good racing, even here you could see Daniel sticking his nose in. Um, Moving into four-wheel drive, uh, it's not the same track, which is not always the case. Um, do you think the track worked as well in both directions, or was it different? From the video, it looked that it flowed. The jump section looked a bit clumsy at times, but other than that, did you find any issue reversing the track?
I mean, if I had to be honest, like for sure, the 2-wheel drive track I think was better just because I felt like it was made a bit more for that way. The 4-wheel drive track was a little bit of a question mark to a few people before we got onto the track. I think once we got onto it, it was okay. I think the only criticisms, and I guess the only 2 places kind of people struggled, but this kind of made it a bit more exciting, was you were, instead of doing, obviously you're doing it the other way, you were doing a double, then a triple. That was kind of the fast line. That was what everyone kind of was doing. I personally was doing it, but you kind of just had to make sure you were, because everyone ran, obviously, not much power, just stop the wheel spin. But if you landed it perfectly, then you can send it over. But some people, I have no idea how, but they were like down sloping it, as you saw, but then everyone kind of just landed on the tabletop. And then I'm going to wait for Marcus on this video to get to the point. But the only place where it's conveniently frozen for me. But yeah, that double there, the profile, I think could have had a bit more of a kick, because in the morning it was actually difficult to just simply clear that double in the left-hand section before the off-cambers. But other than that, actually, it was fine. I didn't think it was bad at all. The step up, I think everyone thought that was going to cause a lot more chaos, but it actually didn't. I think chaos in finals just because you were basically landing on the brakes, but it seemed like it was fine. But I think in terms of like world's tracks, it was fine. I still thought it was a fun track. There was definitely way more mistakes. But I think that was because of those 2 jump sections generally causing a lot of issues. Was kind of my comments on it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of the best track reversals I've seen. So in that sense, I think it was good. But there were sections that, in my opinion, didn't look to work that much, which was this jump section. I wish they would have carved that tabletop so that it would have been just a downside. So there wouldn't be that tabletop to land onto. And then that corner tabletop, which we're going to come into on the next lap, it definitely did not work the other way around. I don't think they changed that, the sort of lip of that at all. So instead of having a corner tabletop like we did in Tool Drive, now it was just sort of a tabletop you ride onto and then jump off. Um, but I think the back section, all of that, it worked really nicely both directions. This double, as you said, it was a bit tricky. I see a lot of people making mistakes. Even Ongaro made his pass around that one, where obviously Marcus then went back by straight again in one of these finals. But when we compare this to China 2017, where the jumps did not work in either direction, I think it's much better than that. And the reason why it's better, because they actually changed the jumps between the races.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in terms of reverse tracks, yeah, it was definitely way, way better. I think it was fine. Like, it wasn't like everyone was complaining, but those 2 sections were tough. And I think actually a few people did say a few things, but I think once the track was, how can I say, like drier, it was fine. Like, you clear that double on the left pretty easy, and then that triple was kind of, it was really like some people were, even some top guys were honestly just doubling and then just singling it. So I kind of went back to back on it, and I think obviously the triple was quicker, but I think the worry was that you would, because it was such a big jump, you were landing and then the car was like getting out of whack, or you would land and go wide. So the time you essentially would have made, you actually lost because you would land and not be settled. That was kind of the argument, but I think like especially at least in my head, no risk it, no biscuit. So I feel like you kind of had to, like, these cars can jump, and there's an opportunity to have a fat send, so why not? But obviously, it was a bit of a talking point whether some people would double it or triple it.
Yeah. Yeah, that I think that's kind of the section when Ongaro tried. He was probably the best one to downside it. But yeah, I think it was really hard. It seemed like it was really hard to do. So, um, a bit of that one, a tough one for a lot of these guys. We already covered the point about it. Some people thought it was not off-road enough, but I think this is what 10 scale has been, like, always been. Like, this is what I if you discount like early 90s, 10 scale has pretty much been like this. The tracks have pretty much been like this always. Then the groove, I think it's really hard to see from the video. But I did hear Pekko say that when he was asking about the track, that some people complained that the uphill sections were a lot more slippery. You said it was because of the shadows that he dried much lower, but like, was it more dusty or was it just that it dried slower?
I think it was just because the track was wetter for longer, so the grip obviously wasn't the same when especially in the morning and in that section. But I think also the other half of it was just because the shadows were in the way. It was really hard to kind of see your car through that section. I just think, at least for me, for those sections, I was a lot easier in the morning because I couldn't see what my car was doing and obviously don't want to crash. But I'm not sure. I'm sure obviously a lot of others have the same opinion, but it wasn't dusty at all. Like the track was how can I say, dusted off after every heat, and they were quite strict on it. So like, and especially we had amazing weather. Like we were really blessed with no rain at all. There was a little bit of rain going into the event, I think, looking on the weather, and there was a bit of question marks whether we would even use the rain days. But in the end, we ran the full schedule. There was no rain, and the track, like especially with the weather, we were having high 20s, if not low 30 degrees at Celsius. So it like the track really came up. So I think like coming back to the grip, I thought it was perfect, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I was actually a bit surprised because it looked like, especially in two-wheel drive, that when you went offline, the grip was significantly lower. Um, was it more so that it was not grooved in? Because obviously, if they dusted it off between every round or every heat, there should not be dust on any part of the track. Or was it just that the grip was really consistent on the whole width of the track?
I think I think again, just like the grip was, to be honest, very consistent. Like about all the track, it wasn't anywhere unless it was the morning and all that drying period where the top left was a little bit hit and miss. But like I think, to be honest, even when that bit was wet, even the rest of the track still wasn't ready. But it always felt like that was the last bit that would that you'd be waiting for. But it was honestly fine. Like it honestly wasn't that much of an issue.
Yeah. I had one more thing put up here in the notes, and then we'll move on to the race itself. Um, Morning runs was significantly slower. So from what I uh sort of took from this is when the track had a lot of more moisture in it and it was wetter, it was slower. That was kind of the takeaway. And well, then in two-wheel drive practice, especially when they had run their practice at night, it was much quicker. So it should be more moist in the evening than it's during the day. But was it that because they watered it the night before, it was moist in the morning, or like what was it? Or was it just that the track developed so much during the qualifying days? Because the times tumbled like 10 seconds over the 5-minute run. I think they were faster in Q4 than they was in Q1.
Yeah, so it was definitely because they were wetting the track every night. I think they were doing that just simply to keep the track together. I don't think there was any other reason for it. So every morning we got to the track, obviously, and especially you wet it and then go into the night, moisture builds out through the night. So in the day, so when we get in the morning, the first round of practice, the track was wet. Like you would actually get mud coming off your car in the well, I guess it wasn't that bad unless it was the very first day. But like it was, yeah, it was pretty low grip and moist. But then as the day goes through, it was really weird that the grip would just get higher and higher and higher. Even when the sun kind of went down on like one or two of the days, it was still like the track was at its fastest towards the end. Because one thing I noticed for the seeding practice. Seeding practice 1, like the track was obviously still getting quicker. So even so, if you got a good time in seeding 1, by the time seeding 2 went out, your time was like slower than the seeding 2. So it felt like you basically had to get your best time in that seeding 2 to be in a good heat, let's say. I guess for qualifying, because they alternated the rounds and stuff, it wasn't as crucial, but definitely in seeding practice, I noticed like seeding 1 was almost irrelevant in some ways because the track would just get quicker than seeding 2. But it was weird, but by the time seeding 2, the sun was down. So I don't know how it still got quicker, but I'm sure someone will. Someone that understands dirt better than me can probably tell me that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something I was wondering because in the seeding practice, even in Tuja when the sun went down, it was better. So, but then obviously the morning was worse. But I think the watching the track explains it. I think wind, I think was a question, but it's probably only in the jumps in the front. I don't think it really mattered that much in the end. Or did you feel it at all?
I mean, for the finals day, it wasn't enough, I think, to the point where everyone was losing their mind. But I just think with some people, if you caught the wind the wrong way, I did notice, I think, even in my final, there was one point my car kind of went a bit nose high. But to be honest, that could have just been because of my driving more than anything. But yeah, it wasn't the end of the world. Let's put it that way. It wasn't the end of the
Yeah.
world, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought. But I think to wrap the sort of track and all of that together, I think most people were happy. I didn't hear many people complain about anything really. It was just that if they complain about something, it was like their car sucking or whatever. But I think most people were happy with the track, and most people were pretty comfortable how everything went. So good job from the track crew altogether. Reversing of the track, I was skeptical, but it did work out really well. Um, so yeah, nothing much to add. Do you have anything to add, or should we go towards looking at the racing itself?
No, I think that kind of covers everything with the track. So I think let's just dive into the racing.
All right, we're gonna cut that one there. Hope you enjoyed that. You'll get the rest of the recap on part 2. And the reason for that is we clocked in at around 4 hours 17 minutes. When we're all said and done with Will, and there's been quite a few listeners who've been keen on having a little bit shorter podcast. So I made the executive decision as the dictator of the show, as my line there says, to cut it into 2. So yeah, we're gonna get into more in detail of what the racing was, and we're gonna go through two-wheel drive, we're gonna go through four-wheel drive. So I think it works out nice in the end. So yeah, this one was more about the overall vibes, news, stuff like that. Next one more in depth. Plenty of stuff to listen to. And if you are a member of the channel, if you're a patron, you don't really got to worry about all this because you're gonna get both as soon as Keaton is done editing them. If you aren't a member of the channel, I think there's gonna be a few days between these two. But I know you guys can wait. And you're gonna be fine with that. Yeah. Nothing much more. Tune into part 2. I think you guys gonna like it. I hope you like this one. And be sure to show that. If you don't like it, please comment and tell me how much of an idiot I am or whatever you guys think. And if you do like it, let us know. Also, let us know if you like just me and Will. I know Keenan's kind of the face of the show. But Keenan can't do everything. He's a busy man. And so for that matter, so are all of us. But sometimes our schedules match up, and it's just me and Will, just the boys, as we say. Yeah. Thank you to all the guys listening. Especially if you made it this far. It's only an hour and a half. So you considering you see me and Will start the show, you're gonna know it's a long one. But yeah, definitely additionally, to all of you guys who are listening and supporting us on Patreon and being a YouTube member, and just generally liking all of our stuff. Big thanks to our sponsors. Big thanks to JConcepts, our title sponsor for the year. They've done a lot to us this year, been a huge support. Um, was the main sponsor for our e-buggy coverage. So big shout out to JConcepts. Thank you for being on board. And along with that, thank you to our premium sponsors: Hitec RC, Sidewinder USA, Latera Racing, Invisible Speed, ML Toys, Sidepiece Racing, and Dollar Hobbies, as well as our standard sponsors: Fly Sky, Get Shit Done Coffee, Elite RC Productions, RC Project, Mayako, Techno RC, Beach RC, Racecraft USA, and Clinic RC. An additional thank you goes to our drivers flying the NNRC flag. I think we're gonna include Maddie. Sorry, not Maddie. Maddie's already involved. Davey Bata. I think he's gonna become one of our drivers. The Bada Bing, if you may, of the RC scene. I think Bada Bing is gonna be added onto that lineup. We're gonna discuss that with Keenan, and yeah. Thanks to all of you guys. Thanks to you who listen. I don't know. I'm just rambling at this point. See you next time. Bye bye.